there, my name is Dr. Katie Saint, and this video is on reinforcement and punishment. These concepts are foundational to ABA, and they're super important to understand for your own personal life in general, because once we notice these patterns and know how to use them to our advantage, life gets a little easier. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get to it. All right. So one thing to understand about behavior is that it's lawful. And so what that means is there is 80 years of research that shows that behavior is predictable and it will do the same thing every time given certain circumstances. And so through this research, we're able to predict behavior and figure out why people do what they do. And if we can take advantage of those variables, we can change behavior as well. So one thing that we look at is what happens immediately after a behavior. Our brain is unconsciously recording if we liked what happened immediately after a behavior or if we didn't like it. And so if we liked the outcome that happened immediately after the behavior, we're more likely to do it again. But if we don't like that outcome, we're likely to change it and do something else. So this is something that our brain is just constantly recording. And so humans do it, but so do animals, so do sea slugs. All of us kind of have this unconscious thing where we're constantly recording what works and what doesn't. So when we look at those patterns, it allows us to predict what's going to happen. You can kind of think of it like a scale. So you have this scale and our brain is just kind of unconsciously doing the math. Like, is this worth it for me to do it? Is there enough good things that are going to happen in order for me to do this? Or are there too many bad things and it's not worth it? So our brain just kind of does this scale. And again, this isn't something we consciously think about a lot of times. Our brain is just kind of doing that math in the background, kind of thinking, okay, in the past, did this work out for me? Was it worth it or not? So you can think of reinforcement in math terms. So if it's positive reinforcement, that means you add something. So if I say, hey, how's it going? And you respond to me, hi, how are you? You look fantastic. That would be positive reinforcement. You added something by responding to me and giving me a compliment. So talking to you, my brain would record good things happen when I talk to this person. So that would be positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is when you take away something aversive. So if I said to you, oh my gosh, can you please turn off that annoying beeping sound? It's driving me crazy. And then you turn off the sound for me, you just provided negative reinforcement. You removed something that I didn't like. So our brain kind of figures that out, like, oh, when I do this, people go away, or when I do this, people stop talking to me. And that's a form of reinforcement. So we can look at reinforcement as it either adds something and it's positive, or it takes away something and it's negative. So we want to think about this in math terms. So now when we're thinking about punishment, the same concept applies. So in ABA terms, the word punishment is just a general statement for anything aversive, anything you don't like. So like say you and I start talking and you find my voice just annoying. So my voice then would be considered punishment because you didn't like it. So punishment can be literally anything you don't like. So when we're thinking about it in math terms, if we add something that you don't like, it's positive punishment. Sometimes that totally messes with people's brain because positive and punishment shouldn't go in the same sentence, but it simply means that we're adding something. So if I scold you and say, hey, that's not appropriate, like you shouldn't have done that, that would be considered positive punishment because I added something to the environment. I said something to you that you didn't like. So negative punishment would be if I took away something you liked. So when my husband tells me, you've bought enough shoes, you don't need any more shoes. If you buy any more, I'm going to take them away. If he were to say that, that would be negative punishment. So taking away my shoes would be punishment. A lot of times for parenting, we do this with electronics. A child was disrespectful to you, and so you took away their electronic privileges. So that would be negative punishment. So when we're thinking about ABA ethics, we really shy away from punishment, actually. So what the research shows us about reinforcement and punishment is that punishment has pretty limited effectiveness, and it kind of tricks people. So if you're threatening to punish your child, like you need to stop what you're doing right now, or I'm taking video games away, they might stop immediately and listen to you because they don't want that bad thing to happen. But what the research shows us is that if you're not there, that doesn't generalize. So the person who provides the punishment has to be present in order for that to be effective. So a really great real life example of that is speeding. All of us almost speed, but if there is a police officer present, we all slow down, right? So we know that speeding is against the law, but many of us still go 5 or 10 over. And so then we see a cop car and we quickly slow down because we don't want to get that speeding ticket. So the same concept applies with punishment. The thing about reinforcement, though, is that it proves to be way more effective. So reinforcement generalizes. If I'm the person who provides reinforcement to you, what the research shows is I don't always have to be there in order for you to engage in that behavior. It generalizes and it sustains better than a punishment procedure. So we really shy away from using punishment procedures. We know reinforcement works better, and we also feel like it's the kinder thing to do. If we can shape a behavior and change it with reinforcement without even using punishment, then that's what we want to do. So when we design behavior systems and things like that, we're always looking at what behavior do I want to see more of? Okay, how do I reinforce that? What sort of things can I do immediately after that behavior happens so that I can increase it? Because if we focus on what we want to see more of and make that really effective and make good things happen after it, that behavior is going to improve. So that can be a really effective way to get rid of problem behavior. So I want you to think about your own personal life, whether it's your relationship with an adult or your relationship with kids, the kids you parent. What behavior do you want to see more of? Sometimes we fall into the trap of thinking, I expect you to act this way, so I shouldn't have to praise you for it. I shouldn't have to reinforce it because this is just what you should be doing. But the problem is, if the behavior doesn't get reinforced, say it gets ignored, like your child keeps trying to talk to you in a respectful way, they're trying to get your attention, they're being really kind and respectful about it, but they're getting ignored. So their brain is going to unconsciously record, crap, this isn't working. Like, I need to try something else because the kind and respectful way is not effective. So then they start doing things that are like louder or more irritating. And so it's frustrating you so much that you stop what you're doing and you give them your attention. You're like, okay, you need to stop doing that. What do you need? Here, just take it so I can get back to my work. That's a really, really common thing that plays out in people's homes where the good behavior got ignored. And so the child escalated to more problem behavior. And then that's what got attention. So that child's brain is recording, okay, these problem behaviors are more effective at getting attention than the good behaviors. So I want you to think about your life. What behaviors do you want to see more of? How can you reinforce it? So remember, what I mean by reinforcement is you're either adding something good or you're taking away something bad. Like, you know what? I love how great you're listening today. You don't have to do chores tonight because you have been so respectful. So that would be an example of negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement, you know what? Let's get ice cream tonight because you have been sharing so nicely with your sister, and I love how great you guys are getting along. So we want to look for every single day ways that we can increase reinforcement. If praise is reinforcing to your child, that, like, by that I mean if they like to be praised. Some kids feel uncomfortable if you give them compliments. So then that wouldn't be reinforcement. So that's one thing we have to think about too. Sometimes we just assume things are reinforcing, like, oh, everybody likes stickers. I gave you a sticker, so you've been reinforced. Well, that's not true if the child doesn't like stickers. I recently saw this play out where we were giving stickers as a reward for on-task behavior, and a sticker was put on this kid's shirt, and he just like cringed and just took it off immediately. Like, oh, that was punishment, not reinforcement. And so what I mean by punishment is he didn't like it. It wasn't a good thing. So that means the behavior was not effectively reinforced. We want to look at what does the child actually like? Because if they don't like it, it's not going to increase their behavior. So the next thing I want you to think about is, what do you want to see less of? So a lot of times the problem we run into is the problem behavior that our children do, they do it because it's effective. It's serving a function and it works for them. So what I want you to think about is, are you accidentally reinforcing problem behavior? So an example of this would be, you're talking on the phone, trying to have a serious conversation. Your child's doing all this problem behavior to try and get your attention. So you get off the phone, you give them what they want, just so you can finish your phone call. This is a really common thing people do, just because you're trying to function, you're trying to live your life, you're trying to get things done. So it's a quick, easy fix. Here, have what you want. I'm going to get back to this. Well, from a patterns of reinforcement and punishment standpoint, you just reinforced that behavior. It was effective for your child. So in the future, they're going to do that again. So what you want to do instead is reinforce the behavior that you want them to do. You want to make that so effective that they don't even need to be tempted to do the problem behavior. So if they tap you on the shoulder and quietly wait for you, that's where you should pause your phone call and be like, oh, thank you for waiting. You know what, here, you can have that food. You were so polite and asking for my attention. And then over time, we could shape that behavior and we could add a little bit more time of waiting so that they can tolerate you talking on the phone for longer periods of time. So we'll shape that behavior over time. But if we're reinforcing that kind, respectful request for attention, they won't even be tempted to do the problem behavior. So that's the end of this presentation. Just remember, behavior goes where reinforcement flows. So we are unconsciously recording all the time if we like what happens immediately after an event. And if we did like it, if it was a good thing to us, we're going to keep doing it. If we didn't like it, we're going to stop doing it and we're going to try something new. So what I would like you guys to do is brainstorm with your team about different ways you can add in more reinforcement for behaviors that you want to see more of. This is something all of us as human beings could get better at, reinforcing our friends, our partners, our spouses, our kids for the things that we like. Like when your husband does the dishes, do you say thank you? When your kids are playing really nice, do you point it out and praise them for it? So just look in your everyday life and see if you can add in more reinforcement. All right, thanks so much for listening, guys.